Hello, my dear children of class 11 science. Once again, I again do welcome all of you through this mode of teaching. Okay, and in this particular video, okay, we start a new unit and new chapter. Okay, and this is unit number 8, and the name of the unit is called Heat and Thermodynamics. Okay, so this is the second last unit number 8. Okay, as per the syllabus for class 11. Okay, there are total 10 units to be covered up. Okay, that means there are total 10 units which are there in class 11 syllabus. Okay, but we are in unit number 8. Now basically in this unit we cover 4 chapters. Okay, there are basically 4 chapters that we cover up. Okay, but one of the first chapter that we start in under this unit is heat transfer. Okay, this is a chapter that we are going to start in this particular video. Okay, now to start with this chapter, let me just tell you what is heat. As you know, heat as a form of energy. Everyone knows that heat is a what? Simply a form of what? Energy. And this form of energy which gives the what? Sensation of warmness or coldness. Heat is a form of energy which gives the what? Which gives the sensation of, I can use the word hotness or coolness, and that form of energy is simply called as what? Heat. Okay, now the degree of hotness, children, the degree of hotness and coldness, as you know, it is always measured by a factor called temperature. So temperature is that factor which measures the degree of hotness or coolness. Okay, but you know, basically we know understand that when body is at higher temperature, that body is basically hot. When the body is at low temperature, that body is usually cold. That means if we talk about the hotness of a body, means body acquires what temperature? Higher temperature. Body acquires what? Acquires what temperature? Higher temperature. Higher temperature. Okay. The coolness basically acquires body at low temperature. Means coldness means basically the body acquires what? Acquires what? Lower temperature. Lower what? Temperature. That means all the body does not acquire same temperature. So hot body basically acquires higher temperature, a cold body usually acquires what temperature? Low temperature. Okay, but the amount of hotness or the degree of hotness or coldness is measured by a factor called temperature. That's why temperature can be measured in what? You know, temperature is measured by degree Celsius. It can be measured in degree Fahrenheit, and it is measured in the unit called Kelvin. And you know, Kelvin is the what unit? SI unit of temperature. And this thing you have already learned in class 7 also, 8 also, and all. Okay. Now, heat as a form of energy, okay, can transfer or it can flow from one body to another body. But basically, when the heat will flow, when the two body are at different temperature are kept in contact, or two body at different temperature are kept very close to each other. But the flow of heat basically takes place from a body at higher temperature to a body at what? Low temperature. So let me just add a point. The flow of heat occurs from a body at what? Body at what temperature? Higher temperature. Okay, body at what temperature? Higher temperature to the what? Body at low temperature. To the body at low temperature. And this flow of heat takes place till both the body acquire what temperature? Same temperature. So under this case, we consider that the both bodies are in what? Thermal equilibrium. And you know the word thermal means heat. The equilibrium means equal maintenance of temperature. Means both the body acquire what? Equal maintenance of temperature. Okay. Now in this particular chapter, we discuss in details about the mode of transfer of heat, which takes place from one body to another body, or body at high temperature to low temperature, or body which are kept in contact with each other, or body which are without kept in contact with each other. Okay. Now the topic that we are going to learn as a mode of transfer of heat. The mode of what? Transfer, or also called transmission of heat. Transmission of what? Heat. Now, the mode of transmission basically also called the flow of heat. Now, the flow of heat can take place from one body to another body, or it can take place from one place to another place. And this flow of heat from one body to another body or from one place to another place is called transfer of heat. We simply call as what? Transfer of what? Heat. So, what is transfer of heat? The flow of heat. Okay, the flow of what? Heat energy. So, I am talking about the heat energy. The flow of heat energy from one body, okay, from one body to what? Another body, or from one place to another place, from one place to another place, is basically called transfer of heat. Basically called transfer of what? Heat. So heat can transfer. Okay, heat can what? Transfer. Okay, but there are basically number of modes that we need to follow for the transmission of heat or transfer of heat. Okay, but the process in which the heat flows from one body to another body or from one place to another place is simply called as transfer of what? Heat. But children, just remember this part, that there are basically three modes of heat transfer or transmission of heat. And the mode of transmission of heat are the mode of what? Transmission. Okay, the mode of transmission of heat are, number one, as you know, it is conduction. Yes, children, you have learned this in lower class also. Conduction. Number two is called convection. Another mode of transfer of heat is called convection. And last one is called radiation. Yes. So, in how many modes the heat can transfer from one body to another body or from one place to another place? Three modes. Okay, and what are the modes? Conduction, convection, and lastly, what is called radiation. Now, children, we discuss in details about these three modes of transmission of heat. Now, one of the first mode that we are going to learn in detail is called conduction. As you know, conduction is such a word, okay, which is actually related to the charging method of charging a body. Okay, the method of charging a body you have learned in class 8 also. Okay, charging by conduction, charging by induction, like charging by friction. These are the terms you have learned. Okay, but in case of transfer of heat is concerned, conduction is one of the process. Conduction is one of the what? Process of heat transmission, which takes place in such a manner where the particle of the body, so just listen carefully, the particle of the body do not leave their position. They do not leave their what? Position. It's called conduction. Means without actual movement of the molecules, if there is a particle can transfer the heat, okay, from one end to other end, then that mode is called conduction. But this conduction is the process which takes place when there is a difference in temperature between different parts of a body. Suppose you have one body. Say, let me just take a one body, means like a metallic rod. Suppose if this end acquire a temperature like say 50 degrees Celsius and this end acquire a temperature say like 30 degrees Celsius. So these are the different ends of this metallic rod. Okay, so one end acquire say temperature of 50 degrees Celsius, another acquire temperature say 30 degrees Celsius. So definitely between the two ends of this metallic rod there is a temperature difference. When there is a difference in the temperature, okay, between the different part of a body, then the particles of the body, so remember this, the particle of body means the molecules of the body at higher temperature, okay, give heat by mutual contact of the particle at the lower temperature. So thus heat flows from the part at higher temperature to the part at what? Low temperature. And this process of heat transmission, in which the particles of the body do not actually move each other, they simply vibrate in their own position but without actual movement of the molecules, that one molecule or one particle of the body, okay, transfer the heat to a neighboring particle of body from higher temperature to low temperature, and that process is called what? Conduction. We usually call as what? Conduction. So children, under conduction as a process, okay, you must have to remember these points. Okay, so let me just read out. there must be the temperature difference between different part of the body. Then only the heat can flow from body at high temperature to a body at low temperature. Okay. Now next one is the transmission of heat takes place without actual movement of particles of body. So when particles of body, one particle of body transfer the heat, the body movement does not take place. I mean the particle of the particles of movement of the particle does not take place in a body. Means without actual movement of the particles of body, the one particle of body can transfer or give heat to the near particle of the body. Okay, that's why the particles of the body at a higher temperature give heat by mutual contact. Just try to understand, by mutual contact to the particle of body at low temperature. So this is the mode that is called conduction. This is the mode called what? Conduction. Now let me give you one example of this mode of conduction, mode of transmission of heat. The example, let me just take the example. Yes, let me take a metallic bar. Suppose you have a metallic bar. Okay, so this is the metallic bar. Now on this metallic bar, okay, so what I do, I supply heat. Okay, I supply heat. Okay, let me just supply heat to this end of the metallic bar with the help of fire. Let me just give a fire to this end of the metallic bar. Okay, that means you are giving fire to this end of the metallic bar, means definitely this end become hot. Means this end become hot means the particle of this end gain or absorb what heat energy that is supplied by the supplied to this end. Okay, so definitely the temperature increases. This end, the temperature of this end become higher. So under this case, this end become the hot end and this end become the what end? Cold end. Because when you measure the temperature with the help of thermometer, as you know, one of the device, you find the temperature will be higher at this end where you are supplying the heat, where you find the temperature lower at this end. Okay. Now as a result of temperature difference between the two ends of this metallic bar, okay, the heat start flowing, okay, from this hot end to this cold end by the process called conduction. By the process called what? Conduction. Okay. So as a result, the other end also become hot after some certain time. Yes, once you supply heat at this end, as you know, the other end also become what? Hot. Now how you can say that this end also become hot? Because when you touch with your hand, okay, with your finger, you feel the sensation of hotness. But the process in which this end also become hot is due to the process called conduction, in which the heat transmission takes place from the particle of this end, and this particle of the end transfer heat, okay, by mutual contact with the particle of near end, so that in this way it keep on transferring the heat energy from one end to what end? Other end. That's why under this process the heat transmission which takes place in a metallic bar is by what? Conduction. Okay, by what? Conduction. Now the question arises out here is why there is a transmission of heat takes place in this metallic bar. Okay, now metals, as you know, are a good conductor of heat. They are good conductor of what? Heat. Now the heat conduction which takes place in metals is mostly takes place by the free electrons. What will present? Free electrons. What electrons? We talk about free electrons. Because in metals there are large number of what electrons? Free electrons, which are present within the metals. Now these electrons are not bound by any of the molecules of the metals. That means they can move freely in the space between the metals. Okay, so that these electrons are free to move within the metals. Thus these electrons behave just like the molecules of the gas. Okay, you know, molecules of the gas moves randomly in all the directions, and this free electron also move freely and randomly in all possible directions. So when one end of the metal is heated, so means this end of the metal is heated, okay, then the kinetic energy, listen carefully, the kinetic energy, okay, of the free electrons present at this end increases. This means why kinetic energy increases? Because the molecules of this end, okay, gain more heat energy. So when the molecules gain more heat energy, then more free electrons move energy or move faster and with the more kinetic energy. So what will increases at this end? The kinetic energy of the free electrons at this end increases. So this electron gives some energy to the neighboring free electrons. There are other free electrons present in this end also. But that end where you are supplying heat, that electron, the free electrons at that end gain more kinetic energy, so that energy only give to the neighboring electrons, free electrons. And this energy which give to the neighboring electron is actually due to collision. So one free electron collide with other free electrons, okay, so that they transfer or give kinetic energy to the other free electrons. Okay, thus the transmission of energy means what energy? The heat energy in metal is basically takes place by what electron? Free electrons. So children, remember this part, how the transmission of heat electron takes place in metal. Actually by conduction is by the transmission of heat energy takes place mostly by the what? Free electrons, not by the molecules. It's not actually by the molecules, but by the what? The free electrons. That is why in metals the transmission of heat takes place very rapidly. Transmission of heat takes place what? Very rapidly. Now in this case, let me just take, like if we pour some scrap of copper in the flame of this burning candles, like suppose you are keeping some burning candles out there, okay, then the candle is simply put off, simply put what? Out. Okay, so the reason is most of the heat from the flame is taken rapidly by the copper scrap, so that the temperature of the flame falls and the wax stops melting. Okay, so that is also one of the case where on this burning candles, in which we are giving heat energy to this end, when we put some scrap of copper, okay, then the temperature of the flame falls and ultimately what happens? The scrap or the wax simply stop melting. But remember this part, bad conductors, see, bad conductors have hardly very free electrons. The bad conductor are like insulator, have very less number of free electrons, almost negligible free electrons. That's why heat conduction in bad like insulators takes place very, very slowly. It doesn't mean that like insulator the heat transmission does not take place. The conduction takes place in insulator also, but it takes a long time. It takes place very slowly, whereas in case of metal it takes place very rapidly. So this is the detailed part of what? One of the mode of transfer of heat, that is called conduction. Now in the next video you learn in detail about the what? Convection.